The last time anyone saw Anaya Patel was at 9:42 p.m., stepping out of the small artisanal bakery where she worked part-time. The security camera above the door captured her pushing her dark hair behind her ear, adjusting her backpack strap, and offering her usual polite smile to the co-worker locking up behind her. It was a slow, quiet Wednesday, nothing unusual, nothing alarming, just another night in a city that rarely sleeps. Anaya walked toward the bus stop, her figure small against the glow of the streetlights. She was known for sticking to her routine: work, bus ride, home. Her parents often joked that she lived life like a metronome, steady, predictable, timed to perfection. That was why, when she didn't walk through the front door by 10:30 p.m., the first person to notice the silence wasn't her father, distracted by his late-night paperwork, but her mother, Anjali. At first, Anjali told herself the obvious explanations. Maybe Anya stopped for coffee, maybe a friend offered her a ride, maybe she stayed late to help with closing. But these thoughts dissolved the moment she called Anya's phone and heard the same message repeat 3 times. "Sorry, the number you are trying to reach is unavailable." Unreachable. Unlikely. Unsettling. By 11:10 p.m., Anjali's unease had turned into a tightness in her chest. Anya never let her phone die. She never ignored calls. She never disappeared into silence. Anjali went to the living room where her husband, Raj, looked up, sensing her worry before she said a word. "She's not answering," she whispered. Raj tried calling, then tried again, pacing the room even as he reassured her that everything was fine, but his shoulders were tense and his voice betrayed him. Just after 11:30 p.m., they drove to the bakery, hoping she might still be nearby. The street was empty. The lights were off. Her co-worker had already left. By midnight, they were at the local precinct, filing a missing person report. The officer on duty maintained the standard calm reserved for worried families. "She's an adult. There are many reasons she might be unreachable," he said gently. "Give it a few hours. She could have gone somewhere to clear her head." But Anjali knew her daughter, knew her habits, knew her fears, knew something was wrong. At 1:17 a.m., a patrol unit was assigned to check common routes and bus stops. One of the officers recognized Anya's name. His niece attended the same college. He volunteered to take the northern route, past the lake, across the old bridge, toward the wooded trail that connected 2 neighborhoods. It wasn't the most direct path home, but several students used it as a shortcut when the buses ran late. The air was cold, the sky clouded over, and the beam of the patrol car's headlights shook slightly over uneven pavement. The officer scanned sidewalks, bus shelters, and bike racks. Nothing. Then, just past the trail entrance, something caught his eye. A silver sedan parked at an awkward angle, too close to the tree line. He slowed, leaning forward. The car was empty. The headlights were off. The driver's door was open. He approached cautiously, hand resting on his flashlight, breath visible in the cold air. The interior light of the car glowed weakly, illuminating a backpack strap on the passenger seat. The engine was cold. A single key hung from the ignition. When the officer checked the license plate, his stomach tightened. It matched the missing person report filed only hours earlier. He radioed in immediately. Within minutes, the quiet trail entrance was washed in blue and red lights, cutting through the darkness. Officers stepped out, scanning the trees, the ground, the silent path stretching into the woods. Anaya Patel was nowhere in sight. The car she had driven every day sat open to the night, as if she had stepped out only moments before, and never returned. By dawn, the news of the abandoned car had reached Anya's parents. They arrived at the scene just as detectives were marking tire tracks and photographing the open driver's door. Anjali stood frozen, her hand pressed against her mouth, while Raj tried to steady her. The early morning air felt unnaturally still, as though the world itself was holding its breath. A detective approached them gently. "We're doing everything we can. We'll update you the moment we learn more." But updates didn't bring comfort. Updates didn't bring her daughter home. It wasn't until nearly 8 a.m. that the investigation took an unexpected turn. Daniel Rivera, Anya's boyfriend of nearly a year, arrived at the precinct after hearing from one of her friends. His hair was unkempt, his clothes wrinkled, as if he hadn't slept at all. He walked in with his shoulders hunched, gripping his phone like it was the only thing keeping him upright. I got a message from her, he said, voice shaking as detectives ushered him into a small interview room. Last night, around midnight. Detective Hale exchanged a quick glance with his partner, then nodded. Show us. Daniel handed over his phone. The message was short, almost cold. I need space right now. Don't call me. I'll be back when I'm ready. It didn't fit. Not with the girl whose abandoned car was currently being processed as potential evidence. Not with the girl who never let her phone die. Not with the girl who had disappeared into a silent forest trail without a trace. Anjali was firm the moment she saw the screen. She doesn't talk like that, she said quietly, each word sharpening with certainty. Anya doesn't use phrases like, need space, and she wouldn't run away from home. Not without telling me, not without telling someone. Daniel stared at the floor, rubbing the back of his neck. We had an argument earlier yesterday, he admitted. I thought maybe she just needed time. What was the argument about? Detective Hale asked. He hesitated, a beat too long. Nothing big, just stress. School stuff. The detectives noted the pause. The message itself raised more questions. It didn't match Anya's usual texting style. The punctuation was wrong. The spacing was off. She never capitalized the first word of quick texts. She used emojis when she was nervous. She had a specific rhythm in her sentences. Soft, meandering, warm. This message was abrupt, mechanical, strangely formal. The timestamp added another layer of concern. It showed 12:03 a.m. Yet phone records pulled earlier indicated Anya's device had last connected to a tower near the forest trail at 11:54 p.m. After that, the phone went dark. 9 minutes. 9 minutes between the phone's final ping and Daniel's message. Detectives sent screenshots to the digital forensics unit immediately. While waiting, they continued questioning Daniel. His account of the night felt shaky, fragmented. He said he had been home alone, no witnesses, no alibi. He insisted he thought the message meant she was overwhelmed. He insisted he had no idea where she was. His hands kept fidgeting. His eyes rarely stayed on one spot for long. By noon, the digital forensics team called back, requesting the original phone for deeper analysis. Daniel handed it over reluctantly, watching as it was taken away like a piece of himself. Hours passed. Detectives combed through Anya's social media, her recent messages, her class schedules. They interviewed her friends. None of them believed she would send a message like that. Not to Daniel, not to anyone. Shortly before 5 p.m., the forensic linguistics report came in. Detective Hale opened the file, scanned it once, then twice. His jaw tightened. He motioned for his partner to step closer. The conclusion was clear, firm, unnervingly precise. The message sent to Daniel did not match Anya's linguistic patterns. High probability of being written by another individual. The investigation had just taken its first decisive turn, and the truth behind that text would unravel far more than anyone expected. The revelation that Anya likely hadn't written the midnight message shifted the investigation from missing person to something darker, something intentional, something human. Detective Hale left the precinct with that report still echoing in his mind. If Anya hadn't typed the text, then someone else had access to her phone, and that meant someone else had been with her after she vanished. By sunset, officers had returned to the forest trail to widen their search radius. The trail entrance, once quiet and overlooked, was now crawling with personnel. K-9 units weaving through brush, evidence markers lining the ground, flashlights scanning tree trunks as daylight thinned into a gray wash. Hale walked slowly toward the car, still parked exactly where it had been found the night before. It looked smaller now in the fading light, almost swallowed by the woods. He studied the open door again, imagining Anya reaching for it, stepping out, hesitating, or being forced. Everything depended on the ground around them. Mud didn't lie. Shoes didn't lie. Pressure didn't lie. "Detective," one of the forensic techs called out. "You should see this." Hale followed him down the slight slope toward the start of the trail. The earth was soft from the previous day's rain, smooth enough to capture impressions. The tech pointed at the first set, small, narrow footprints leading from the car toward the woods. The size, the depth, the stride, it all aligned with a woman around Anya's height and weight. "Matches the victim," the tech said quietly. Hale nodded, but his eyes were already shifting to the marks beside them. The second set was larger, significantly so. The prints were deeper, the spacing longer, belonging to someone heavier and stronger. They followed closely behind the smaller ones, almost too close, like a shadow glued to her steps. Anya hadn't walked this trail alone. The thought tightened the air. The second set abruptly stopped a few feet in. From there, the ground told a different story. Scuffed dirt, uneven pressure, a dragged shoe mark slicing across the mud. Hale crouched, touching the disturbed earth with a gloved hand. "She didn't leave willingly," he murmured. Further in, the drag marks grew more pronounced. Something metallic winked near a patch of wet leaves. One of the officers lifted it gently with tweezers, a silver chain, broken at the clasp. "Is that hers?" Hale asked. They checked the photo Anya's mother had given them of her daughter dressed for a friend's birthday dinner. Around her wrist, a slim, delicate silver bracelet. "It's the same design," the officer confirmed. The bracelet was half buried in mud, like it had been torn off mid-struggle. Hale felt the weight of the object as though it carried a pulse. Anya had been here. She had fought. Something had happened, right on this path, under these trees. But there was more. The tech tilted the bracelet under his flashlight. There, tangled around the metal, was something dark, almost blending with the mud. He brought it closer. A single long strand of hair. "Bag it," Hale ordered. They placed it into an evidence envelope and carried it to the portable lamp station set up near the patrol cars. Under direct light, the strand glistened unnaturally smooth, darker than the mud around it. Hale knew Anya's hair, her driver's license photo, the missing posters, her social media pictures. Her hair was thick and slightly wavy. This strand was straighter, silkier, longer. Hale's mind raced through possibilities. If Anya had been assaulted or forcefully grabbed, she might have ripped out her attacker's hair during the struggle. Victims did that instinctively. DNA extracted from hair, especially if it had the root attached, could identify a suspect. He inhaled slowly, steadying himself. The forensics tech took a closer look. "This isn't the victim's," he said after a moment. "Color's similar, but the texture is way off." "Could it belong to a woman?" Hale asked. "Possibly. Hard to say yet." Anya's mother's face flashed in his mind, the way she insisted her daughter didn't send that text, the certainty in her voice. If another woman was involved, the narrative changed entirely. As Hale gazed back down the darkening trail, the weight of the unanswered questions settled across his shoulders. 2 sets of footprints, 1 broken bracelet, drag marks, and a single strand of long black hair belonging to someone who was not Anya. Whoever that hair belonged to had been close enough to touch her, close enough to fight her, close enough to take her into the shadows of the woods and vanish without a trace. Detective Hale returned to the precinct with the evidence bag containing the long black hair still echoing in his thoughts. The trail had offered enough signs of a struggle to confirm foul play, but not enough to explain who had been with Anya that night or why she had vanished so suddenly. If the forest gave them physical traces, maybe her digital life would speak louder. Anya's laptop had been collected earlier that morning from her bedroom, a neatly kept space with soft lights, handwritten notes pinned above the desk, and textbooks stacked in disciplined piles. Nothing looked disturbed. Nothing looked staged. Yet Hale knew from experience that secrets rarely lived in the open. They lived behind passwords, deleted files, and quiet corners of the digital world. The cyber forensics lab glowed blue from multiple monitors when he stepped inside. Specialists typed with focused precision, a hum of processing machines filling the silence. One of them, Nora, waved him over. "Detective, you're going to want to see this." She spun her chair toward the laptop screen. Anya's home folder looked ordinary at first. Class notes, photos, saved assignments, internship documents. But Nora highlighted a single blank-looking file labeled with nothing more than a period. "A hidden folder," she explained. It was buried behind multiple layers of false directories. Whoever made it didn't want anyone finding it accidentally. "Can you open it?" "Already did." She clicked inside. The folder expanded into a collection of encrypted voice recordings, screenshots, and text files. Dates stretched back almost 4 months. Hale leaned closer, a knot forming in his stomach. "She was tracking something," Nora continued, "or someone." The screenshots told part of the story first, a series of bank transactions originating from accounts associated with Anya. But the transfers weren't to her usual bill payments or tuition deposits. These went to obscure recipient names, small amounts at first, then larger ones. Each transfer was labeled with notes like, "Not me," "Unauthorized," "Someone accessing," "He knows." "She reported any of these to the bank?" Hale asked. "No record," Nora said, "but she documented all of it here." The next file was a text document listing dates Anya had noticed missing money, strange activity on her email, and times she'd received anonymous calls from unknown numbers. Some entries were frantic, typed quickly with typos. Others were calmer, almost resigned. But all of them pointed toward the same pattern. Someone was taking from her, watching her, manipulating something inside her life. "Who had access to her accounts?" Hale asked quietly. "Family, maybe," Nora said. "A partner? Close friend? Someone she trusted?" Hale felt his jaw tighten. Daniel's face flashed in his mind, the nervous fidgeting, the fragmented story, the text message he couldn't explain. But the evidence wasn't naming him yet, not directly. "Play the recordings," he said. Nora opened the first audio file. Anya's voice filled the room, shaky and low, as if she was afraid someone might overhear. "December 4th, she whispered. "Another withdrawal. I didn't make it. I called the bank again. They say the password reset happened on my phone, but I didn't do it." Hale listened, emotion tightening in his chest. This wasn't the voice of someone preparing to run away. This was the voice of someone unraveling under pressure. Another recording started. "He told me he'd fix it, but I don't trust him anymore. I caught him lying again." Hale glanced at Nora. "Did she name him?" "Not yet." More files followed. Quiet breaths, whispered thoughts, fear layered beneath every word. Anya spoke about feeling monitored, about hearing someone in the hallway outside her dorm room late at night, about missing cash, about messages she swore she hadn't sent. The tension grew heavy with each revelation. Then Nora clicked on the final recording, time-stamped the same night Anya disappeared. Static filled the speakers at first, then Anya's breathing, uneven, tight, as though she had been crying. Her voice trembled as she spoke, barely audible. "I think he knows I found everything. He said things tonight that scared me. He wasn't supposed to be near my accounts. But he changed after I confronted him." A rustling sound, a sharp inhale. Anya's voice dropped to a whisper, weighted with dread. "If anything happens to me, Check who he really is." The room went silent. The recording ended, and Hale felt the investigation shift again, this time into territory far more dangerous than missing money or a lover's argument. Anya's fear was real. Her warning was clear, and someone she trusted had been hiding a truth dark enough to make her document it in secret. Detective Hale replayed Anya's final recording in his mind as he drove to question Daniel again. Her trembling whisper, "Check who he really is," clung to him like cold air. The financial abnormalities, the hidden recordings, the midnight message that wasn't hers. Each new piece pointed in one direction, but Hale needed evidence strong enough to widen the investigation around Daniel Rivera. At the precinct, Daniel sat in the interview room looking even more restless than the day before. A coffee cup trembled slightly in his hand, and he avoided Hale's eyes. The forensic report on the text message lay in a folder between them. Hale didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, he started with something simpler. "Daniel, we reviewed your timeline from the night Anya disappeared. You said you were home by yourself. No witnesses." Daniel swallowed. "Yeah, I told you that. And you said you didn't go anywhere near the forest trail." "I didn't." Hale nodded slowly. He removed a printed still from the folder. Not the text message, but a grainy surveillance image. A dark truck turning onto a road just 12 minutes from the trailhead. "This is your truck, isn't it?" Daniel's reaction was a fraction of a second. Eyes widening, breath catching, fingers tightening around the coffee cup. Then he forced a shrug. I was driving around. I couldn't sleep." "You didn't mention that earlier." "I didn't think it mattered." "It matters," Hale said. "Everything matters." Before Daniel could respond, Officer Ramirez knocked on the door and leaned in. "Detective, you'll want to see this. His employer just sent over personnel files." Hale excused himself and stepped outside, scanning the documents. At the top of the second page, employee Daniel Rivera. On the third, employee Leah Grant. Hale frowned. "Who's Leah?" "Co-worker. Same department. Works his exact shift." "And look at this," Ramirez added, handing him a stack of internal emails flagged by the company's HR team. Hale skimmed quickly. Jokes, late-night messages, personal photos sent from non-work accounts. The tone wasn't professional. It wasn't even friendly. It was intimate. Ramirez pointed to one email thread dated 2 nights before Anya disappeared, Leah asking Daniel if he was still coming over. Daniel replying, "Same time as last week." Hale exhaled. Anya had documented financial manipulation, threats, and lies, and now an affair layered itself into the picture. "Bring her in," he said. Leah arrived an hour later, pale and visibly nervous. She clutched her purse like she expected it to be taken from her. Hale offered her water, but she only twisted the cap without drinking it. "Leah," he began gently, "we need to talk about your relationship with Daniel." Her eyes darted away. "We're co-workers. Co-workers who exchange late-night messages. Co-workers who meet after shifts. Co-workers who talk about things that have nothing to do with work." Leah's breathing quickened. "I didn't know she was missing until this morning," she whispered. "I swear." "We're not accusing you of that," Hale said calmly, "but we need the truth about Daniel. Everything." She hesitated, fingers trembling as they tugged at a loose thread on her sweater. He told me he and Anya were basically done." "When did he say that?" "A few weeks ago. He said she was controlling, that she checked his phone a lot, that she was making his life difficult." Hale felt a spark of anger flare. Anya's recordings had painted a very different picture. "Did he ever mention money?" Hale asked. Leah frowned. "Money? No." "Passwords? Bank accounts? Anything like that?" "No," she said quickly. Too quickly. Hale exchanged a glance with Ramirez. Leah, we know something happened that night. We know Daniel wasn't where he said he was. We know his truck was near the trail. Leah's face drained of color. I told him not to go, she blurted out. He seemed off. He kept saying he needed to fix something before it got out of hand. What did that mean? Hale pressed. I don't know, she cried. He wouldn't explain. He just kept pacing and muttering. He said she was ruining everything, that she knew things she wasn't supposed to know. Hale's breath stilled. What things? Leah hesitated, then broke. Her voice cracked as she whispered, Daniel told me something that night. Something about Anya you won't believe. Detective Hale barely had time to process Leah's trembling confession before another officer informed him that Anya's family had arrived at the precinct. He thanked Leah and promised they would talk again soon, though her eyes suggested she feared what might come next. Hale tucked his notebook under his arm and headed toward the family interview room, the weight of the investigation growing heavier with every step. Inside, Anya's parents sat close together at the metal table. Her father stared blankly at the floor, hands clasped tightly enough to whiten his knuckles. Her mother, Mira, sat perfectly still, too still, her eyes fixed on some invisible point the rest of the world couldn't see. Hale recognized that look. It was the expression of someone holding back more than grief. He approached gently. Mr. and Mrs. Patel, thank you for coming in again. We know how difficult this is. Anya's father nodded mechanically, but her mother didn't move. The silence stretched for too long before Hale finally sat down across from them. We've discovered a few new details, he said carefully. We're trying to understand the days leading up to Anya's disappearance. Anything unusual she may have mentioned. Anyone she was worried about. Still, Mira said nothing. Her father cleared his throat. Our daughter wasn't the type to keep secrets, he said. If something was wrong, she would tell her mother. That was when Mira finally lifted her gaze. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with something sharper, fear. Hale felt himself sit up straighter. Mrs. Patel, he said softly, did Anya tell you something? Her lips trembled, and then, almost too quiet to hear, she whispered 4 words that made every detective in the room go still. Daniel feared her secret. Hale's breath caught. The phrase landed between them like a dropped blade. He leaned forward. What secret? Mira inhaled shakily. 2 weeks ago, Anya came home very upset. She said Daniel wasn't who she thought he was. She said he had been lying about money, about his job, about things he was involved in. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest. She said she had proof. She was scared, but she thought she could help him. She loved him, even then. Hale exchanged a glance with Detective Ramirez, who had entered silently during the conversation. What kind of proof? Hale asked. Mira closed her eyes. She didn't tell me everything. She only said Daniel owed someone a lot of money and that he was hiding things from everyone. She said he was afraid she had discovered something he couldn't let anyone know. The room fell silent. Anya's father looked horrified. Why didn't you say this before? I didn't know it mattered, Mira whispered. I didn't think it had anything to do with her being gone. I thought it was just relationship problems. Hale shook his head. Mrs. Patel, this is extremely important. If Daniel had debts or was hiding financial activity, that could explain a lot of what we've been finding. Her eyes filled with tears now. She said he threatened to leave her if she didn't stop asking questions. But I think he meant something else. Ramirez stepped closer. What do you mean? Mira's voice cracked. Anya told me Daniel had become unpredictable. She said he was scared, not of her, but of what she had uncovered. If anything happens to me, she told me, it won't be an accident. Hale felt the pieces sliding into place, the hidden recordings, the bank screenshots, The late-night arguments neighbors had reported weeks earlier. Daniel's erratic behavior the night she disappeared. Leah's confession about him needing to fix something. And now this. Confirmation that Anya had discovered something dangerous enough to frighten him. Hale stood abruptly. "We need financial records, all of them, now." Ramirez was already moving. "On it." 2 hours later, the detectives gathered around a glowing monitor in the cybercrimes office. Lines of transactions scrolled across the screen, each one more suspicious than the last. "Here," the analyst said, pointing. "This is Daniel's primary account. Normal paycheck deposits. Small purchases. Nothing unusual on the surface." "Surface isn't what concerns me," Hale muttered. "Go deeper." The analyst clicked into a hidden ledger of flagged activity. Transfers routed through third-party apps, quick withdrawals, and deposits made in irregular patterns. At first glance, they looked random. But the amounts were too precise, the timing too consistent. And then they saw it. A second account. One Daniel had never disclosed. One that shouldn't have existed at all. "Is that a burner account?" Ramirez asked, squinting. The analyst nodded grimly. "Registered under a fake name, but linked to Daniel's device." Hale's stomach tightened. Transaction history revealed a trail of payments, large ones, moving out of Daniel's legitimate account and into the burner. Thousands of dollars at a time, sometimes more, and then smaller outgoing payments from the burner to another unknown destination. A pattern, a motive, a secret big enough to destroy everything. Hale exhaled slowly, the truth settling over him like ice. Daniel Rivera wasn't just lying, he was hiding something that someone would kill to protect. The courtroom smelled faintly of polished wood and stale coffee. A hushed tension filled the space as Daniel Rivera sat at the defense table, his fingers tapping nervously on the dark mahogany surface. Hale and Ramirez observed from the prosecution side, reviewing notes, photographs, and digital exhibits. Months of investigation were finally coming together, and every piece mattered. The judge called the court to order, and the first witness, Detective Hale, rose. His testimony began with a measured recount of the night Anya disappeared. He described the abandoned car, the forest trail, and the mud-laden footprints that confirmed a struggle. Each detail was accompanied by carefully curated photographs, tire tracks, the half-buried silver bracelet, and the twisted drag marks leading into the shadowy trail. The jury leaned forward, absorbing the visual evidence that made Anya's disappearance tangible. "Detective Hale," the prosecutor said, "what did you find at the scene that indicated Anya Patel may not have left voluntarily?" Hale pointed to a marked photograph. "These footprints," he explained. "One set matches Anya's size. The second is larger, belonging to an adult male. The drag marks suggest force was involved. A silver bracelet belonging to the victim was found half-buried, with a single strand of long black hair entwined. DNA testing later confirmed the hair did not belong to Anya." Gasps traveled across the courtroom. Hale continued, systematically presenting each piece of evidence. Next came the fabricated text message Daniel claimed Anya had sent. The forensic linguistics report was displayed, highlighting inconsistencies in punctuation, vocabulary, and timing. Hale explained in precise language how the midnight text was not authored by Anya. "This evidence," Hale emphasized, "shows that the defendant attempted to mislead those searching for her by sending a false message to create the appearance she had voluntarily left." Daniel shifted uneasily in his seat. His lawyer stood to object, but the judge allowed the evidence as admissible forensic testimony. The next portion of the trial focused on financial records. Hale presented a clear chart showing Daniel's legitimate bank account, the hidden burner account, and the sequence of unexplained transfers. The jury watched as numbers scrolled across the screen. Thousands of dollars withdrawn, shifted, and concealed from anyone, including Anya herself. These transactions, Hale said firmly, reveal a pattern of deceit and concealment. They also demonstrate a motive for silencing the victim. She had discovered his secret financial activities and had been documenting them. The prosecution then presented GPS data from Daniel's truck on the night of Anya's disappearance. The surveillance images and time-stamped location markers placed him within 10 minutes of the forest trail. Hale explained the timeline. Daniel claimed to be at home during these hours, but the data contradicted every statement he had made. During cross-examination, Daniel's defense attorney attempted to redirect the jury. "Isn't it possible," he argued, "that another person, an unknown stalker or third party, was responsible for your client's actions? Perhaps they left the footprints or manipulated the messages?" Hale remained composed. "The evidence is conclusive. The footprints and drag marks are consistent with someone of his stature and shoe size. The digital timestamps, financial records, and forensic analysis all point to the defendant. No evidence suggests an unknown third party had access to both his device and Anya's personal information." The black hair was re-examined on the courtroom screen. Hale explained how it was collected, preserved, and analyzed. "While we cannot conclusively identify the owner at this time," he said, "its presence at the scene, combined with all other evidence, supports the conclusion that the victim did not leave voluntarily and was forcibly confronted by the defendant." Witnesses from the bank were called next, verifying the unusual withdrawals. The jury could see the flow of money and the way transactions were routed to obscure accounts. Hale emphasized the intentionality, connecting it to the motive he had described. Even Daniel's alibi was dismantled. Surveillance footage from convenience stores and street cameras corroborated the GPS data. Timestamps placed his vehicle near the forest trail at precisely the times he claimed to be at home. Every lie was exposed systematically, leaving little room for doubt. The prosecution rested after presenting the final exhibit: a detailed timeline overlaying financial movements, GPS pings, and digital footprints. The courtroom was silent, the weight of the evidence palpable. Daniel's attorney rose for closing arguments, reiterating a narrative of an unknown assailant, but the digital and forensic evidence had already framed the story. Just as the jury seemed ready to deliberate, the courtroom doors opened slightly, and a young woman stepped forward, holding a small, familiar-looking device. Gasps rippled through the room. Hale's eyes narrowed. She held up the object with a trembling hand. "I found this," she said, voice quivering, "and I think it belongs to Anya Patel." Every head turned. Daniel's eyes widened. The trial had just taken a new turn as a potential piece of evidence, long missing, was about to be revealed.
The courtroom was quiet now, the previous day's chaos distilled into tense anticipation. The jury's attention was fixed on Hale as he prepared to present the final piece of evidence: Anya Patel's missing phone, recovered only hours earlier by a surprise witness. The device was carefully bagged and handed to Hale, who connected it to a forensic station where the files could be played in real time for everyone present. Hale's hands were steady, but he could feel the room leaning in collectively. Every prosecutor, every juror, and even Daniel's defense team waited for the truth contained within the small device. Anya's final words had been recorded just days before her disappearance, her voice trembling as she revealed what she feared most. "Ladies and gentlemen of the court," Hale said, "what you are about to see is a direct message from Anya Patel. It was recorded in her own hand, her own voice, before she vanished. Please pay close attention to the details." The screen flickered to life, showing a dimly lit bedroom. Anya's face filled the frame, illuminated by the soft glow of her laptop screen. Her eyes were red from tears, her lips trembling, her breathing shallow. The audio was shaky, punctuated by faint background noise, the hum of a fan, the distant sounds of a street outside, almost as if the room itself was holding its breath. Anya began to speak, her voice quiet but urgent. I I don't know if anyone will see this, she whispered, voice cracking. I found out something about Daniel. About the money, the accounts, everything he's been hiding. I tried to confront him, but he threatened me. He said, if I told anyone, if I even questioned him, it would be my fault. That I shouldn't interfere. The jury leaned forward. Hale's eyes scanned their reactions, gauging the impact of her words. The video continued, each frame revealing a girl caught between fear and resolve. I don't know what he's capable of, she said, swallowing hard. I fear he'll hurt me. I've documented everything, recorded everything, because if anything happens to me, if I disappear, someone needs to know the truth. Check the accounts. Check the messages. Check everything. He's not who he says he is. The camera shook slightly as she adjusted it, her hands trembling. She glanced toward the side of the room as if expecting someone to appear, then returned her gaze to the lens. If this is the last time you hear from me, please, she whispered, almost pleading, please make sure he's held accountable. I'm scared, but he can't get away with this. The recording ended abruptly. The screen went black, leaving a momentary silence, heavier than anything that had come before. Hale paused, letting the gravity of her words settle in the room. The jurors' faces were pale, some pressed hands to their mouths, others staring blankly at the screen. Unable to blink away the weight of what they had just witnessed, Detectives Ramirez and Hale exchanged a look. The video had confirmed what the investigation had suggested. Daniel's threats were real, and Enya's fear had been justified. Every element, the financial manipulation, the hidden accounts, the falsified text messages, now culminated in her own testimony, silent yet visceral, captured on that trembling device. Hale then opened the metadata associated with the file. A timeline appeared on the screen, meticulously displaying creation times, last modified timestamps, and device activity. The room's tension deepened as Hale's finger traced the critical detail. This video, he said, pointing to the timestamp, was recorded on the night of Enya's disappearance. Minutes before the GPS data places Daniel's truck at the forest trail. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The jurors exchanged shocked glances, the defense team stiffened, and Daniel's face drained of color. Hale continued, emphasizing the significance of the timing. The evidence now shows a direct correlation between Anya recording her fears and Daniel's presence near the location where she vanished. The timestamp proves she documented her concerns immediately before any physical confrontation could have occurred. It establishes not only the timeline, but also the imminent danger she faced at the hands of the defendant. He paused to let the statement resonate. The room was deathly quiet, every individual processing the weight of the revelation. Hale could see the shock on the faces of Daniel's attorney, and even on some of the court staff. For the first time, the theory of an unknown assailant seemed impossible. The chain of events had been meticulously preserved through digital, forensic, and now audiovisual evidence, all pointing toward one person. The prosecution had now presented the full story: forensic footprints, the manipulated text, financial records, GPS data, the black hair at the scene, and finally, Enya's own voice detailing her fear of Daniel. The timeline aligned perfectly, leaving almost no room for doubt about the sequence of events. As Hale concluded, he looked directly at the jury. Anya Patel's final message is not just a video. It's a record of fear, a call for justice, and a testament to the danger she faced. And the timestamp confirms exactly when that danger became real: minutes before the defendant arrived at the scene where she was ultimately taken. A hush fell over the room. The jurors were silent, the defense attorneys whispered among themselves, and Daniel sat frozen, the enormity of the evidence crashing down upon him. In that moment, it was undeniable. The truth of Anya Patel's disappearance had been captured, recorded, and confirmed by her own hand, leaving no question of the timeline and the person responsible. The courtroom remained suspended in stunned silence, the screen still glowing faintly, the last frame of Enya's frightened, determined face lingering in everyone's memory. The evidence had spoken, and it could not be ignored. This sets up the final resolution, or verdict, while leaving the timeline and culpability crystal clear for the next chapter or conclusion.